traffic items. We are an advisory board, and our favorable recommendations do go before the Oshkosh Common Council. The council can accept or reject any recommendation from this board. If you don't agree with our decision, you can in fact discuss it with any council member. If the board does not recommend an item, a council member may in fact sponsor a new ordinance regarding that item. All items do require 2 readings before the Common Council. The first reading will take place on Tuesday, September 28th at 6 p.m., and you will be in fact allowed to comment on the item at that time, although the council will take no action. On Tuesday, October 12th at 6 p.m., the item will be on a second reading, at which time the council will take action, although you will again be allowed to speak at that time. For this afternoon's meeting, I will read each agenda item, at which time, if you'd like to speak to the item, please step to the podium and give your name and address for the record. I do ask that you keep your comments pertinent to the agenda item. The item will then come back to this board for discussion and action. First item, I'm going to ask that roll be called to verify a quorum.
Staple.
Here.
Kaczynski.
Here.
Hanson.
Here.
Becker.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Beardsley.
Here.
That being, we have a quorum. The first item on the actual agenda is public comment, and seeing no one in attendance that might avail themselves of that, I'm going to move on to the first enumerated item on the agenda, which is the introduction of an alternative board member. So, Mr. Collins?
Yep, we got Mike Beardsley, who was appointed as an alternate member to the Traffic and Parking Advisory Board. We have not had an alternate member before, so how that works is the alternate member attends the meetings, and then if we are short a member, then he would fill in and act as an active member and vote along with the rest of the group. And I'll let, if you just, Mike, you want to introduce yourself real quick? And
Yeah, thank you. Michael Beardsley. I've lived in Oshkosh for going on 8 years now, so I'm happy to be here and be involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Which then brings us to Agenda 2, which is the approval of prior minutes, the prior meeting's minutes.
Move.
Need a second?
Second.
Anyone with any comments, questions, additions, or deletions? Seeing none, I will call roll on approval of minutes.
Staple.
Aye.
Kaczynski.
Aye.
Hanson.
Aye.
Becker.
Aye.
Christensen.
Here.
Beardsley.
Aye.
Which then flips us to old business, a couple months in the making, but the election of meeting chair and vice chair.
yeah, generally we usually it's around springtime, we need to elect a new chair and vice chair each year. That's how each board does that. So for lack of a quorum or some having enough board members here, we put it off for a couple months, but we need to do that again. So I'll let Dan kind of do that process, but I think what we do is accept nominations and then vote.
That being said, I will open the floor to nominations for vice chair. I will take it upon myself to nominate Mr. Staple to remain in the role he currently serves in.
Second.
If there is anybody else that would like to, I foresee that I will miss a lot of meetings next year.
World traveler.
I'm hoping so. I'm hoping the
Well,
COVID
good for
gods
you.
let me do that.
Well, that leaves it to you, Mr. Kaczynski, or anyone else, I guess, for lack of a better term. No offense. Obviously, the council member can't fill that role.
Technically they can, but it's not recommended or preferred.
Well, given her gesticulation, I would suggest she's not interested in serving as vice chair. So, gentlemen, don't all run to the line and.
Either of you willing to, both of you would be great at it. I'd be happy to nominate either one of you if you're willing.
Going once, going twice. There appears to be no other nominations, Mr. Staple. That being the case, I'm going to close nominations for vice chair. All those in favor of Jim Staple as vice chair of this board signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor? Hearing none, unanimous.
Gonna say it himself.
All right, which brings us to nominations for chair.
I would nominate Daniel Becker.
And I'll second that.
Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will abstain. Thank you. Which brings us to new business, a request to remove the left turn restriction from Jackson onto New York during peak hours of 3 to 7. Mr. Collins.
Okay, this was basically, if you remember back a few years ago, before we had the current road diet, we put in a left turn restriction there to help curb crashes during the peak hour. And most of the crashes, I gotta move down the road a little bit, that's Nevada. But most of the crashes were left-turning vehicles that were being hit by cars in the curb lane oncoming. So now with the new road reconfiguration, that's no longer needed. And the reasons, because now we only have one lane of travel in each direction, A, and B, we are in the process of obtaining cameras for this intersection so that the intersection can then be actuated with actual left turn arrow when needed. So there's dedicated left turn lanes here now, whereas there weren't before. So it's also obviously going to be a lot safer setup, and for those reasons, we no longer need the left turn restriction. And additionally, to put the left turn arrow on the overhead pole, we can no longer fit the no left turn sign on the overhead structure. So to go along with the new layout and the recommendations, there's no longer a need for a left turn restriction.
Does anyone have any questions or comments? Well, actually, I need a second first, sorry.
Second.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Collins on this issue? I do. If memory serves, and granted that becomes less reliable as time goes on, but was part of the process, or part of the thought process, I should say, in restricting left turns from 3 to 7, the safety of school traffic at that intersection?
No, the main reason we put that in was because of the crash history, and most of those crashes were during that 3 to 7 period. However, almost all the crashes were due to the left turn vehicles not being able to see the vehicles coming in the curb lane. So now with the new rotary configuration with only one lane of traffic to cross there and a dedicated left turn lane with the potential there for a left turning arrow, there's really no reason to restrict left turns there. Additionally, with eventually, and I'll get to that later in the meeting, but eventually the new Merrill Middle School is actually going to be up the road further. So this intersection, although not related to what we're talking about now, is actually probably going to become less busy once that happens.
Well, my concern ultimately stems from whether it was on purpose or just sheer, for lack of a better term, dumb luck, there was a safety benefit to kids headed north and south on Jackson, which was going to be my question. Can we reasonably be assured there's going to be a crossing guard in place until the completion of the new Merrill school?
Yes, there's a crossing guard there every day, morning and afternoon. Police department, those positions are hired out, but when they cannot be filled by a hired out position, then it is staffed by an officer.
All right, again, people are short-sighted in that they look for traffic but don't bother to concern themselves with a kid in the crosswalk or anyone in the crosswalk for that matter. So I don't want a situation to develop there. Anyone else with any questions regarding Agenda 4? All right, then please call the roll on Agenda 4.
Staple,
Aye.
Kuzinski,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
and Beardsley.
Aye.
Agenda 5, request to restrict left turns from northbound Jackson to westbound Nevada.
This actually was also part of that road reconfiguration plan. And the current, the signage is currently up. This is now we need to correct, or put this formally into the code. And the reasoning is due to this offset intersection here at Nevada, there's now a dedicated left turn lane here to go from south to east. So obviously, you're not gonna be able to turn left here and cross over, that left turn lane there. So that was part of the plan that was approved and recommended, and therefore we need to formally put that in the municipal code to disallow left turns there at that intersection.
I do need a second,
Second.
or move in a second, sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
give you the move, Jim.
Second.
Second from Ross. Discussion. Did you have a?
Oh, I didn't have my
Oh,
hand
okay.
up.
It's so hard to tell when you can't see people's faces.
Yeah.
Oh, Ross is here in spirit, I guess.
Oh, sorry, Bill, did I call you Ross?
That's-
Shame.
I've been called worse, please.
Well, your wife doesn't have anything to do with this. Anyway, I do have a quick question, Mr. Collins. What's the status of Nevada to go southbound on Jackson? Is that gonna be a free left turn, essentially?
Yep, you can currently turn left there.
Okay. How are we gonna sign the no left turn to go westbound?
Currently, we put a sign right here that says that it's basically a no left turn sign.
So in the unlikely or likely event, someone decides they want to make that left turn, we are gonna jam traffic in that 100-foot stretch of roadway.
Yep.
Okay.
I think most of the people that are gonna wanna turn left there are obviously, residents of that area, so.
Right, which is why I'm surprised no one's here.
It's already painted on the
Yes,
street, isn't
it's
it?
already signed in, painted, and based on the recommendations from the road reconfiguration, there's no way around that
Oh,
left
I
turn.
get
But
it.
that's why I'm surprised nobody's here either.
Well, right, I mean, it's to no one's surprise, this town is full of what I call zigzag intersections. And this just happens to be another one of them. It needs to be done, I just wish there was a better way to do it, but short of, laying out a new street grid, there's no way to make that work, so. Okay, that's what I had. Anyone else before we call roll? All right, call roll on Agenda 5, please.
Pickle,
Aye.
Kuzinski.
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Beardsley.
Aye.
Which brings us to Agenda 6, request to update parking regulations on South Main.
So South Main Street was the other street that was recently restriped. Council gave us direction, gosh, it's almost about a year and a half, almost 2 years now, at that time. And the reasoning that South Main Street was restriped, it was part of the Sawdust District plan that identified the need to add additional on-street parking. So council gave us that direction, like I said, about a year and a half to 2 years ago. And then because this is also state connecting highway, they required us to do a traffic impact study and evaluate the intersections before they approved restriping South Main. So we went through that process, and KL Engineering did that traffic study and showed that it would still operate at an acceptable level. And so therefore we contracted that out along with Jackson Street to be restriped this summer. So it's now restriped, and this is basically what this does is it updates the municipal code to allow parking, and it's mostly going to allow parking on the east side of the street, and then there will be some parking allowed as well on the west side. And that'll match the direction that we got from council to add that additional parking. So there'll be, this is a little bit different than Jackson Street in that here, there are turn lanes at the intersections, but not through the whole stretch. And the intention here was to, like I said, allow parking for businesses. For example, this, I think we were looking at Fifth Ward Brewing and some of those places that'll add some parking in front of their businesses. That's an old photo, but this basically is going to update those parking regulations so they match what's painted on the street currently.
Anyone care to move this agenda item?
Move it.
Second, anyone? Second to Mr. Staple. Anyone with any questions for Mr. Collins?
Yeah, has there been parking on the stretch from South Park to Fond du Lac Road? I've never seen anybody park there, so.
No, from South Park to Fond du Lac Road is still 4 lanes, so.
Yeah, 'cause it's added in here, but like I said, I didn't think there ever was any.
Oh, the reason, that's just, it's basically, we start 170 feet north of South Park Road. So you're correct, there currently isn't any parking South Park to Fond du Lac, but we had to add that 170 feet so that we can keep that intersection clear. So that's just the way to codify it.
Was any consideration given to a situation similar to that of Titan Stadium to restrict parking shortly before and shortly after an event at the arena? Because I really do foresee a problem. I mean, if you've got cars parked on the street, the mass exodus at the conclusion is going to prevent people from pulling away from the curb, and we're going to wind up with problems.
I did check with our planning staff on what the intention was, and they said the intention was unrestricted parking. So I think that that's something we could evaluate in the future if it becomes an issue. Obviously there's not much going on at the arena currently, but I hear what you're saying.
That's my biggest concern, and honestly, I'd rather see us do it at the outset to set the expectation, because once behavior's been ingrained, it's going to be tough to turn that tide.
So if it was, you're thinking something that, 6 hours before
No,
an event or something?
I think Titan Stadium's an hour prior to
I
game
think
time.
that's what it is. Yeah, it's like
Well, it has to be enough time so you can't park, you'll be in violation by the time the thing happens, right? So I don't know, how long are they making the parking for? That they're putting in?
It's
all day?
it's unrestricted currently,
Okay.
is what their plan is.
And so is the parking near Titan Stadium, unless there's a
Okay.
game.
Yeah, I think by Titan Stadium, it's, I have to refresh my memory, but it's no parking during special events. You might be right, it might say something like from 1 hour before to 1 hour after, something like
Because,
that.
that makes a lot of sense to me. And if we word it that way, we haven't changed anything if there are no events there. And if there are events, then it's set up, we don't have to revisit it. So if we could follow whatever the rules are at Titan Stadium.
From where to where are you thinking from probably what?
It'd have to be that whole block.
Probably 11th to South Park, right? Because I think once you get down here, I don't know if there's gonna be as much of a concern, because there's obviously not as much
Right, but
traffic
anything-
down that way. But
Yeah, anything south from that point to at least South Park, I think, has to be restricted during those timeframes. both sides of the
11th to
street.
South Park.
Just make sure it's the same as Titan Stadium, like an hour.
Oh,
to
right, yeah,
hours.
yeah, absolutely.
So we're keeping consistent.
So I would amend Agenda 6 in not so many words to reflect the restrictions currently in place around Titan Stadium.
I would second that.
Between the designated intersections.
That doesn't pertain to all of these items though, does it? Or-
No, I think what Dan is saying is basic from 11th to
11th.
South Park.
11, yeah. The rest of it is, I'm amenable to. I just don't want, I mean, picture yourself getting to the, a herd game bright and early, staking out your parking spot and leaving at the end of the game and being stuck in that parking spot for 40 minutes. It's conceivable if you've been to a herd game with the way traffic stacks. So anyway, I'm sorry, were you gonna say something, Jim?
No, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I've thought of that as well, but our planning staff said that was the current intention, but I don't think they'd have an issue with that.
All right, so there's an amendment or a motion on the table to adopt the issue as I outlined. Mr. Staple seconded it. I'm looking for a roll call on that unless there's discussion further on it. Oh,
Are you saying both sides?
both sides. Otherwise, we just wind up with the
From
same
11th to
South Park. Yep,
Does that need to be seconded as an amendment?
Jim
I
already
did.
took care of that.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right, so I'll call roll on the amendment and we'll get back to the motion in chief after that.
Staple,
Aye.
Jazinski,
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Beardsley.
Aye.
All right, which brings us back, as I said, to the motion in chief. Anyone have any further discussion
The
on
only
it?
clarification I'm having is, so with all this removing no parking and adding no parking back, what does that do immediately when you're coming off the bridge?
This
Two
doesn't,
lanes on the
By the way,
bridge each
so-
direction,
yeah,
and we're immediately going to one?
it's restriped starting at 8th. So it's not, so it's still 2 lanes
We'd
or
have a
4 lanes
couple
from
lanes.
6th, 7th, 8th. It's already restriped. So if you
Okay.
look at it now, you'll see there's 4 lanes until 8th, and then after 8th, it shifts to the 1 lane in each direction.
And that's what this says too?
This is just taking care of the parking, but yeah, this matches up with what's painted there.
Okay.
You know, other than obviously with the amendment, there's no signage there now, so we gotta do something, so that's what we're trying to correct.
But I don't see, what I guess I'm asking about is from the Fox River to 8th, the no parking, that's just went away and I don't see it's added back.
Oh, you mean on the, so on the east side of the street, right?
I don't know, it says
Yeah.
it's taking off no parking both sides, and then it's adding no parking back several different spots, but I don't see no
Right.
parking being added back from the Fox River to 8th, if that's the way it's striped.
Yep, I see what you're saying. So I guess we'll need to make sure that we keep the current parking regulations as they are from the Fox River to 8th.
Okay, so should we have an amendment to put that in? Or not? I mean,
I'll put a preemptory second on that one. Oh, that went over.
But you're not really changing anything, correct?
no, we're not changing what the
No.
current status is,
Right,
we're just
so-
keeping the current status there, but this, I don't think reflects
Right.
that current
All
status.
I think, again, I don't mean to speak for you, Jim, but all I think he's doing is trying to preserve the status quo.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
no harm, no foul.
That makes sense.
So hence the second. So that being said, the second amendment on the motion in chief is to essentially protect the status quo from the river to 8th. Motion made by Mr. Staple, my second. Any discussion? All right, call the roll on the Staple amendment.
Staple,
Aye.
Jazinski.
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Beardsley.
Aye.
All right, back to the motion in chief. Anyone else? Seeing nothing, I will ask for the roll on Agenda 6 as amended.
Staple,
Aye.
Jazinski.
Aye.
Hanson,
Aye.
Becker,
Aye.
Christensen,
Aye.
Beardsley.
Aye.
All right, that then brings us to staff statements. Mr. Collins.
The only thing I have is also a little bit related to Jackson Street, but we're not going to discuss this at tonight's meeting because it's not on the agenda or noticed, but we are going to discuss this at our October meeting, and that'll be the So I just wanted to give you a preemptive look at it so you can think about it before the next meeting. This is the proposed layout of the new Merrill Middle School. And as it relates to that, the school district had a public meeting last week, Thursday. But this board, we will be looking at the traffic flow at the October meeting. Specifically, they're proposing flipping Kentucky and Central Streets. So this, they're looking at some bus drop-off and then flipping Kentucky so it flows from north to south with student drop-off in this area, and then flipping Central Street so that it would go south to north. So the city required the school district to do a traffic impact analysis, and they had a traffic engineering firm do that. So that traffic engineering firm will be at the October meeting, and then we'll be taking a look at this, and then I'll have on the agenda the proposal to flip these two one-way streets. So I just wanted to give you a preview of that, and you can think about that a little bit before the next meeting. And then the only other statement I had is, we talked about earlier, the Jackson Street restriping is done, the Main Street striping is redone, and the RRFB, the rapidly flashing rectangular rapidly flashing beacon, has been installed at the new crosswalk at Jackson and Congress, and that was just programmed yesterday, so that is now operational, and that'll be a benefit to eventually to this layout.
All right.
And then one other statement, and Mr. Becker's aware of this. They're starting a WSDOT, so the state is starting a new study for the Jackson and Oregon Street bridge.
Stole my thunder.
Oh yeah, I was
Okay. That's where I was going.
want to mention that. I know Mr. Becker is going to be on the group that's going to take a look at that. So if you remember, about 4 or 5 years ago, I want to say, the state started a study on that as far as whether we should reconstruct it or renovate it, and then it got paused at some point in time, and now they're starting up that program again to get input to see what the recommendations are and what direction we should go.
Good deal. Thank you. Which brings us to future agenda requests. Anyone have a desire to see something on a future agenda? No, I'm going to ask Mr. Collins that we take a look at reevaluating the loading zone on the north side of Seward Trail between Oak and Hazel. Any further clarification on that, or otherwise?
Yeah, I know that, I guess I'll have to take a look at it. I know there's a lot of history that's went into the loading zones there and how they've done the street. Now, obviously, going forward, they're gonna be reconstructing that school, so we'll be requiring them to do a full traffic impact analysis, in the next, from what I understand, they're doing Merrill School first, so.
Yeah, that construction project is at least 2 years out, so.
Yep.
There's needs in that area, and in the interest of full disclosure, I live on Oak Street, on the corner of Oak and Seward, so I get a eagle eye look at the situation. And if you'll indulge me, just to bring everyone up to speed, can you pull us to that location? I don't want to get into it here, but just to give people some background and an opportunity to think about this.
So we're at Oak.
Close, but no cigar.
Oak and Hazel, you said, right?
Oak and Seward actually is your best look if you look east from there.
Okay, so here's
A little
Seward
further
Merrill.
north, a little further, that's my garbage can. Get us a little further north.
This way?
Now spin us to the east. Nope, keep going. You see the dumpsters there? There's actually parking by ordinance still available in front of those dumpsters, which is a problem in and of itself. And if you look, the spacing, keep going east a little bit, there's no room for one car between those curb cuts, but still parking exists there technically. There's been more than one occasion where both the school district and myself suffer because no one can gain access or exit from those locations. So what I'm asking for is the loading zone.
Oh, sorry.
You're giving me vertigo here, Mr. Collins. The loading zone actually starts where that sign is, but parking is theoretically permissible further west.
Okay.
That sign in front of the dumpster, which causes problems both for garbage collection as well as end of day.
So what are you thinking, maybe moving the loading zone back further? To
Moving
here?
the start of the loading zone further east and posting it no parking from
Okay.
the driveway where the dumpster gate is now currently open to
Okay.
4 feet past that driveway,
So like here.
which is what state statute calls for anyway.
Yeah, okay.
And potentially curbs in yellow back behind it. There was some discussion about a crosswalk as well at that location, Mr. Collins, and I'd like to revisit that issue. And I don't certainly mean to monopolize this conversation, but there's a lot of safety issues as a result of that loading zone. And I firmly support the loading zone. It was put in place to keep, it's a one-way street, to keep kids from having to cross the street to be picked up by their parents. It still does happen. Believe me, again, I have the eagle eye look at it almost every day. But it does cut down, but as a result, all the kids cross right in front of those dumpsters to go southbound on Oak. And it is a bit of a blind corner. So, again, I've seen more than one close call at that corner.
Okay.
So I think by putting traffic back a little further, it gives traffic northbound on Oak a better look at pedestrian traffic as well, because then you won't theoretically have kids popping out between parked cars. So, anyway, that's the background on the issue.
Okay, thanks. We can take a look at that.
I will entertain, unless someone has something else, a motion to,
I do. I have a question. This would be probably a law enforcement issue. Is there any standard for, let's say, car exhaust noise, radio noise? There's about every other day, there's a Ford F-150 maroon color that goes by that's actually I don't know how the guy can stand it that's inside, unless he's got earmuffs on it. I mean, it's just, it's almost deafening. I don't, is there anything that can be done about?
Yes, for traffic, there is exhaust noise standards, and generally that's regulated to what the factory equipment of the vehicle would have been, because those all come out with a NHTSA rating for noise, of what it should be, but the state patrol does have individual decibel meters specifically for measuring exhaust. OPD doesn't have that specific decibel meter, but if the exhaust is modified beyond factory or defective or leaking, a citation or warning can be written on that. And same thing with amplified music out of a vehicle. If there is a decibel reading that can be taken within 75 feet of the vehicle, it has to be below a certain level, and you can receive a citation for that as well. And the way that you would report that is by calling the police department non-emergency, giving us a license plate and time of day that they're typically going through, and we would assign an officer to look for that vehicle.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that being the case, I will again entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Call for second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.
For that one, you
Thank you.
probably.